Actually, I just remembered that someone asked me something just the other day and was hoping that I would say something about this. It was kind of a question that he had about motives. I talk about motives a fair bit. And I think the upshot of his question was, are motives bad? And I'm like, good question. So let's just talk about that for a few minutes. So are motives are things like I want something or I need something, and they are sometimes stressful because they get in the way of me being objective or me being open to doing inquiry, or even in life, just being they can get in the way. It's a strange thing. On the one hand, having a motive tells me where I want to go, and it's honest, and it shows me my interest and points the direction. But on the other hand, when I get too caught up in a motive, it can end up hampering my actual progress because I'm so focused on wanting that thing and wanting it that I end up kind of blocking it in a way or not actually doing what I need to do to bring it into fulfillment. So motives, they're not a bad thing. They just, I guess it depends on how you hold them. If you hold them tightly, then they can be they can be a problem. They can be a pain. They can block you. They can make you feel stressed. But if you hold them lightly, they can just kind of point in a direction of interest, and you can find yourself moving towards the fulfillment of your own desires, which is not a bad thing at all. So, the only thing that causes stress, as far as I can tell, is attachment. When I'm attached to what I want, then I've got a problem. Or if I'm attached to things going a certain way or things not happening a certain way. Like when I am not flexible, when I'm gripping, then I feel stress. And the interesting thing is that in the kind of regular world, if you will, like the outside world of action and accomplishment and all that stuff, a lot of times you can use brute force to get what you want. So you can keep attaching and just keep on going and just power through, and you can actually kind of win the game, if you will, on some level. But when you get into the subtler levels inside of yourself, that doesn't work anymore. And what we're interested here in doing the work of Byron Katie, we're interested in inner peace. We're interested in inner freedom. And that, if you do any pushing on that level, it just pushes right back at you. And you can't power through it because you can't really power through it even when you're forcing your way to be successful, say, in the world or doing something external. Even if you force there, you pay the consequence on the inside. You might end up being exhausted, or you might end up being depressed, or you might end up feeling stressed on some level or another. And so, even there, that motive can kind of backfire if you're too attached to it. But when you're working and you're doing the work and you're doing inquiry, you're doing meditation, then there is no external, you don't even get an external win. Like that just doesn't even hardly matter because what you're interested in is the internal. And so motives suddenly can really just cloud uh, the whole experience. They can make it be a difference between um, something that you enjoy and something that becomes stressful. So there's nothing wrong with motives, it's how you hold them. And so I like to think of a motive as being starting out as just me listening to myself, and that's what I want. Yeah, I want to go, I want to go to Europe or something. Okay, great. Let me hold that thought, and that's interesting, and I feel the joy of it, and it's a motive. And if it's strong enough, I'll make the arrangements and I'll actually go to Europe. Um, But I want to hold that lightly and let it inform me rather than me trying to force it into existence. And so when I'm doing the work, I have a motive a lot of times to feel better, or I have a motive to stop being stressed about something, or motive to be stop being angry about something. And that motive got me to the work. So where's the problem? That's a good thing. But that his job finished when it got me to the work. Now I can just drop it off and let the process go as much as I can without a motive. I'm not saying you can't do the work with a motive. You can, believe me. I think probably most of us do the work with a motive, me included. But the lighter I hold that motive, the more effective I'm going to be because I'm actually more listening in that regard. The work is about listening. It's not about pushing, or it's not about getting some outside accomplishment, even if that outside accomplishment is peace. So when I say question your motives, it's just an invitation to loosen your attachment to the outcome that you're doing the work for, or that you're facilitating someone for, or that you're even wanting to create something in the world for. Loosen your attachments to that, and then just follow your heart's desire. And that's beautiful. Byron Katie even has a little instruction that I love. She says, question anything that would stop you from following your heart's desire. So that's a motive, right? And a motive's not a bad thing. She's like, go for it. In fact, question anything that would stop you from going for it. But at the same time, don't get so stuck on it that you are not open to wherever life may actually be moving you. And so sometimes you start out in one direction and then it changes, and pretty soon you're actually more interested over here, and you follow your own trail. But if you get too stubborn, which is what attachment is, then you get locked on. I said I was going to do this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to force it. And by the time you arrive at whatever goal it was, you end up just stressed, and what's the point? So that's how motives can interfere with this process of doing the work, or in some cases of actually fulfilling your own dreams and desires. So my takeaway, my turnaround for this is I have desires, but I hold them very lightly, and I even sometimes just let them go, and I allow that desire, if it's truly natural, to keep coming up and guiding me from time to time as it points me in the maybe ever changing right direction. So that's openness. And when you have openness, it's not incompatible with having a desire, it's not incompatible with having a motive. But that openness is what actually allows you to fulfill it in a way that is real, not just external only. Because if I'm only focused on motives and I'm just using that drive to do it, then yeah, I may hit some of my targets, but at what cost? And so I'm interested in the full experience from inner to outer. And if I had to choose one, I'd choose the inner as like the more important for me. So for me, holding a motive very lightly, that really works for me. Ironically, it actually is really effective on the outside world as well, because it means you're flexible. You've got direction, but you're flexible at the same time. So coming back to where I started, yes, question your motives. Why? Not to get rid of them, not to get rid of them, to loosen the attachment that you have to them. It's the attachment to those motives that makes them sticky. And when you do the work, what are you doing? Who would I be without the thought? You're playing with a little bit of space there, a little wiggle room, as I like to say. Or you're turning it around. I don't want what I want. It's not saying don't want what you want. No, it's saying, well, okay, there's other things besides that. And if I'm open to it, maybe not getting what I want could be as good as getting what I want. And that leaves me in an open space. And so now the attachment has gotten loose. And now I've done exactly what works best for fulfilling desires in the first place, which is having a loose hold on them, and then you can start, instead of, when you're so focused on holding on to a desire, it's like all you can see is that desire, which is not even fulfilled, and you start almost feeling like you don't have it. You're almost starting to feel like you're not good enough because you can't fulfill that desire, or it's taking too long, or it's too hard, or all you can see is the desire, the desire, the desire. You're blinded to the way to get to the desire in reality, which is there once the mind gets more open and less attached. So it's like a weird kind of obsession where we get so zoomed in on the goal that we forget how to take the steps to even move in that direction, let alone be open to, maybe that wasn't even where my end goal turned out to be anyway. How many times has that happened? So yes, question your stressful thoughts, and if a motive is stressful, that's your clue that you're more attached to it. If it's not stressful, if a motive is blissful, why question it? Maybe it's probably already fairly loose, but you never know. It might be stressful, it might be attached to. Question your motive and then be with it, and then see where you are. And then with that, you can be in a more easy place for any kind of action, any kind of inquiry, any kind of ability to be there for someone else, like when you're facilitating. So yeah, that's a kind of random collection of thoughts there on motives. And I guess the bottom line is the motive itself is not bad. It's how you hold it. And if you can hold it more loosely, you're going to have a lot more fun with motives. And the way to hold a thought more loosely is to question it. Do the work. Go through the 4 questions, the turnarounds, and when you do the turnarounds, don't get rid of the original thought. Let it coexist with the turnaround or the turnarounds, and then you'll have a 360-degree view, and all possibilities are there, and that's an open mind. And so many times I've questioned a motive, seen how good it is for me not to get what I want, come to a place of understanding of that, and that's really fine, and still pursue my original motive because that still feels good, because now it's just coming from my heart, but without the baggage of like, that's the only way. And what it frees me up is if I can't get there, or if I don't manage to accomplish that in some way, there's no problem, because I'm also open to not accomplishing it and all the turnarounds that I explored with it. So that's the purpose of doing the work, is just to find that open mind, and then it really is a play. Then it really is fun to have a desire, because you can fuel it and move it and have so much fun with it, but you're not attached to it. And then that's the best of both worlds, in my opinion.